Hello, everyone. Welcome to From the Table podcast. And this is episode 5. And this is a really special time. The table is full. We have Gen Z here around the table, and we are going to discuss Gen Z's hopes in some really important areas of the world and see how the table culture of Jesus is impacting your generation from one generation to the next. As I was preparing for this, I was in Psalm 145 where it says, "One generation will declare your mighty works to another." And I really pray that as you guys join us, as we take this time, that we will get to see that, that one generation can share and one generation can share, and we're going to see the mighty works of God revealed. So thank you, Leticia, Victoria, and Josh for being here, and we're ready to jump in. So
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I mean, this is what it's all about, I'm not too old, but I'm kind of getting there. And this is my daughter, by the way. So I'm really excited to have her right in the middle of this table today.
Thanks, Dad.
Between these two. Yeah. But Leticia is an incredible part of SEAPC and actually leads a lot of our missions work coming from the United States to the nations and within Brazil. She is from Brazil, and she is a medical doctor, and she became a medical doctor at the age of 23 and also has a master's in leadership. And so God has really moved through your life, Leticia, to not hold back, even at a young age, to have hopes and dreams and to see change. And I wanted to ask you today, and for our audience, how do you see the table of culture of Christ impacting global missions? Because obviously you've experienced a lot of that even at a young age. You've worked with many different generations at a high level. What are you seeing? What are you sensing for Gen Z for missions?
Well, I think our generation, we see a lot of identities, not so much about the church's names or brands or anything like that. It's just like, hey, we love Jesus. We want to serve each other. It reminds me a lot of Romans when they talk about one body but different parts. So we all submit our gifts or talents to the table. And we're like, hey, we're here to support each other. We're here to serve and strengthen the church, which is the ultimate goal, to share the gospel and for every woman, man, and child to hear about Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross. So when we think about the table culture, where we lay ourselves down and we look at each other, and there's no hierarchy, which is very, very prevalent in the healthcare. There's no titles. It's just brothers and sisters who are adopted because of what Jesus did on the cross. And we just serve each other like family. I think that's when the change happens. So it's not going on a mission, settling our own agenda, but rather just being like, hey, what do you need and how can we serve and how can we strengthen the local church? And I see a lot of the Gen Zs doing that. It's like, hey, I love Jesus, you love Jesus, let's serve together and let's share that love. It's simpler.
Yeah, simpler.
Why do you think that's significant for Gen Z in their engagement in missions? Because each generation inherits a world that they're called to.
Mhm.
Why is it important for Gen Z missions to reflect the harvest that's in Gen Z, where their hearts are, where their minds are, where culture is, what they're faced with? God really prepares a generation to reach a generation. So when you see that in missions, anything more that you see on that and the significance?
I see a lot of taboos being broken overall. So we see a lot of Gen Zs with tattoos or with different hair colors, or just the way they speak's different, the slangs, no cap and stuff like that. And even with those slangs, they're able to share Jesus. So there's no titles, there's no the legalism that the previous generation established, like this is how you preach, this is how you share, this is the agenda of a mission trip. They break all of that, and it's a great way to reach their own generation because they speak their language.
When you think of the generations that came before you, what things do you appreciate that have been passed to you in missions? What are some of the blessings that you think that your generation carries in missions that were inherited from the work of others, and now you maybe want to take that further? You're saying we need to go even stronger into that? Anything come to mind?
Well, it's easy to think about my own family. I'm the third generation of believers. I'm also the second generation of missionaries in my family. So seeing what they did, I learned a lot of what they do right and things that we can grow, strengths and weaknesses. And I think overall, what goes from generation to generation is the love of Jesus Christ. Don't lose focus and keep fighting for the good fight. Like Paul said, like fighting the good fight, keeping the journey, finishing the race. That's really what matters. And seeing that in my parents after 20 years of missions, they still have that fire. They still care for the lost. They still care for the prodigal son, like they did back in the first year of missions, with even more fire, more experience. So I take that as a big lesson for sure.
Awesome. I know a prayer for me is that for my generation, that we would fight for instead of fighting more. Like fight for you. And I know that people fought for me. We want to fight for you. Instead of fighting against, we want to fight for. And it's amazing how much God has given Gen Z. I mean, the amount of resource, the amount of technology to reach the world. So when you think about stewarding what you've been given, what do you hold as like, okay, I know we've been given a lot. What is your passion to use it? How is your passion to use what God has given your generation in missions?
I think our generation, compared to the previous generation, we have a lot of access to technology or social media, and that can reach unreached areas that we don't necessarily need to be there physically, but people can hear this podcast wherever they are. Then we in closed nations where Bible might not enter, but hey, a different book, or even social media, Instagram. I've been to places where they don't have ceilings, they don't have walls, they don't have windows, but they have internet. And they follow me on Instagram, or they follow the church after we went on a mission trip. So we definitely have been given a lot. And with that, we also have a lot of responsibility because we are exposed to a lot every day.
Yeah.
Either that is good or that is bad. And it's not so much what we just see from the outside, it's what we take in. And we decide to share as well, because the power of life and death is in the tongue. So it's dangerous. And I think a lot of the mentorship from the previous generations will help us steward that, because they have also been exposed to really bad things in the past. And how do you filter that?
Well, what we take in, that's profound. Can you give a word to your generation right now about missions? A charge to Gen Z about missions? What would you say to them if you had, and we have many that are going to watch, but if there was 100 of them in the room right now, what would you say to them? What charge would you give them personally?
I always think of, for I was lost, but now I'm found. If we love our neighbors like Jesus told us to, we don't want them to be lost. We don't want them to die. We don't want them to suffer and be bound by depression, anxiety, or the lack of identity. We want them to know who they are, and we want them to know that Jesus Christ did something that no one else could ever done for us. No one else would ever do that for us. And there's a hope, there's a way, there's a truth, and there's life. And if we found that, we should share that, because it's life-changing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for living it like you do. Victoria. So Victoria's traveled obviously with our family around the world, many nations, many meetings with dad, mom, from world leaders to kids to everybody in between. I know that had a deep impact on your upbringing, of course, or your decision in what you would do with your life. And I know that you went to Regent University and got a bachelor's in government and international relations. And that was wonderful, but not a surprise, because I know you saw things. You saw good things, you saw hard things, you saw injustice, you saw justice, you saw people without a voice and people with a voice. And that moved you to want to see impact in the government sphere of nations. And I'll ask you that question today. How do you see Gen Z and the table culture of Jesus impacting nations and their governments and how they lead people, how they prepare for a future?
That's a full question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as far as the table goes, I think it's really cool that Gen Z is really focusing on going back to the basics of family. And government originally was all about the family and how do we support the family? How do we protect the family? And, most of Gen Z isn't in government positions at the moment. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. But it's a lot about, I just want to have a family. I just want those simple things in life. I feel like our generation before us was very ambitious in like doing stuff on our own. And Gen Z is very much like I want to have those people. I want to have my people around me and just learning how to do that cuz again like online is hard to have that connection. So I think this generation is really trying to learn cuz they can feel that disconnect that they've had cuz they've been online their whole lives. And I think they're finally starting to notice like, hey, this is there's something more. I need something more. And I think they're starting to go out and find it. Yeah, so for government in the world, I'm very curious to see how that's going to embed into when they do get those positions within their own governments and their own fears. Yeah, there's so much like within the government that I'm very curious about because they're going back to the basics. I feel like government is going to. I'm praying it does, because it's so corrupt in every nation, in different ways for sure. But it's so complicated. Government has taken on the role of the family, of the church, of the schools, everywhere, and with that comes it's not really a government anymore in the way that they were designed to be. So people are not doing the things that they're called to do. They're not raising their family. They're having someone else do it. They're not really teaching their children. They're having someone else do it. They're not relying on their own gifts, their own talents, because they can get it from the government systems. So, which is not what it was really designed for. It was designed to protect the country. It was designed to build an opportunity for the people to grow, not be their growth, if that makes sense. And obviously the church, at least here in the States, I'm praying, is waking up to the fact that they have more responsibility than just filling a church room on a Sunday. So much of what the government does now is what the church used to do: provide for the poor, create a home for those who don't have one, be that support, be a place for kids to learn as well, was a huge thing. Even when I was little, we had classes at school. I mean, we had classes at church, so which was really cool. But yeah, so I'm praying that Gen Z is going to be that generation that brings it back to the basics of what it was meant to be and not suffocating people, because I mean, it's pretty easy for a government to do all these things because they have way more power and way more influence over everyone and every sphere of their life. And it makes, people trapped. They're kind of stuck there. They don't have anywhere else to go, and they don't learn how to do it on their own. I think Gen Z is really independent. We really want to learn, we really want to grow, and we really want to do it ourselves without, people just handing it to us. I feel like, I don't know for everybody, but for me, the friends that I've had in school, the number one thing is they didn't want to cheat. They didn't want to even use AI. They wanted to be themselves, which I was surprised. I'm like, it's pretty easy just to use AI. Yeah. But it was so much of like, no, I want to grow. There's actually a deep hunger for learning and knowing knowledge.
Wow.
So, yeah. That was a lot.
Yeah. The Gen Z is a huge generation of population. Huge. So you're going to have people that are seeing a hope in the future. You're going to have some that are just going to feel like I'm lost in the digital world. I'm just, and I have to recreate my own future online. I'm living vicariously through social media. what would you say to nations and people living in nations in your generation that are living under a very suppressive environment,
Mm.
maybe where they don't have the freedom, but they see freedom online every day,
Mm.
and they dream for an opportunity to be able to have what you described
Yeah.
take place? How would you encourage them? How would you challenge them to have hope in a future?
I think the biggest thing you could do in that situation is find those like you. Find those people who also see the struggle, but also know there's a way for it to change. And the more people you build up, the more of a voice that you do have. Um, and the more ideas, the more thoughts, and I feel like the more hope you have because you're not alone in it and you don't feel like you're alone in it. Because, yeah, Gen Z can be very isolated as well, like you mentioned, being online. So if you can find real world people that you can stand side by side, you can physically see them in front of you and they're having the same emotion, they're having the same hope as you.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how countries were born. People had an idea and they found other people with the same idea. And the more they added up, the more numbers they had and the more ideas and the more support they could get because they're like, oh, they have a lot of people who are fighting for this idea. It's hard to stop a lot of people.
Right.
So, yeah, if you can find those people who, they have hope, but they're also struggling with you together. I think that's a big one.
Yeah. And we see with Iran the growth in the church, and that's very much Gen Z driven.
Mhm.
Nepal just had a recent uprising
Mm.
because they just had enough, and that was Gen Z
Exactly.
driven. You had the Arab Spring that happened not too long ago. People that are
Mhm.
just like, we have to break through, and we don't know any other way, but sometimes violence, right?
Mm.
But I love what you shared. It's like, okay, we need change, but we need to go back to a root of family, and we need to speak into that root, which is very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, violence can bring some immediate change to deal with the situation. But I really have a hope for your generation that you will see the deeper root
Mm.
and that you'll speak to the deeper root. You won't shy away from the deeper root, but you will prophesy to it. You will pray into it. You will unite around it, because the quick fix doesn't last. And we have to go to the root of what people are crying out for. So awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joshua Rubin. Love you, Josh. We're just so blessed by having you in our team here at SEAPC. And, you've helped us so much with communications, with managing relationships, and which is so complex in our time. People are a part of 100 different things in one moment. And what do they give their heart to? What do they have time to invest in? And I know you have a degree in data science, a master's in that, and you've dedicated your natural learning, but I know you have a spiritual calling, and you can see it. Like, you want people to connect well, and you want things to last. You want relationships to last. And when you think about Gen Z and the table, which is about relationship and communion, what do you see for your generation? What do you want to see with relationships and stewarding relationships well, and communication with one another? Because that's such a challenge today.
I agree with you. But again, when you asked me that question, it was interesting. I was just reading up a little bit this morning. I discovered, it was news to me, every second in this world, there's 6,000 terabytes of information flowing to and fro every second.
6,000 terabytes.
About 6,000, it's 5,000 something, but close to 6 because 5,995 something. Anyway, coming back to that,
Wow.
that much information is like
TMI.
yeah, it's also like every morning I wake up, I'm like, the first thing when I wake up, I'm being sold to. My toothbrush is a sales pitch. My phone is a sales pitch. My bedstand is a sales pitch. Everything is a sales pitch. It's like everybody wants me to buy something early in the morning, and that's information overload.
Yeah.
It's especially for someone living in this generation. It's like, okay, everybody wants my time, and I don't have time.
Mm.
There's that constant sense people my age, people around college age, just around that as well, especially in universities. I think you guys see that too. It's like that's one thing young people do not have time. It's like we're always short of time.
Mm.
We're always so busy doing something that we don't have time.
Hmm.
In this, when we then come into relationships, something Matt always said was relationships are built with love, and love equals trust and time.
Hmm.
But I'm like, if there is no time, then what are we building? Nobody has time for anything anymore.
Yeah, it's real.
How do we manage to connect the whole message for Gen Z there? I always say we always want the same thing across time. We all want fellowship. And the foundation for fellowship, especially for us as Christians, is I've been in 1 John for a while, and then that's one verse that always sticks out in the opening. It's the whole pitch for 1 John in my head is if we walk in the light and we have fellowship with one another, the basis for fellowship is our shared life in Christ.
Yes.
And we all want that. That's something we desperately need. We want that goes back to why we do what we do, why we want to connect with everyone. I think that's where we sit. It's like, yes, we want fellowship, and that's what we need because we have that design for it. We live in relationships. We live and we need fellowship. That's how God created us. So yeah, that's that. But in all of this, it's always like, okay, now how do I form these fellowships? How do I form these relationships? Because one, nobody has time. Two, everybody's connected to everyone now. Somebody's sitting here in Oakmont. Today we sit here. I'm sure somebody sitting somewhere in New Zealand is also going to listen to us because we're also connected. And again, we're connected with a time delay of probably a blink of an eye.
Mm.
Like if you say something here today, it's going to go out there before you even blink.
Mm.
That's how quick information flows. But in that, I think growing up as well in this generation, something we constantly see is we were brought up with the whole idea of you are a brand. Like you yourself are a brand. You're not just a part of a brand. It's like, oh, Joshua Rubin should be a brand. Build your degree, build your this, build your image, portfolio, put your profile picture, put your bio page, your lines. I'm a little outdated for social media, but
You just
either way.
described LinkedIn as a
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media.
LinkedIn. There you go.
Literally.
That's my.
Mm.
But that's all we grew up with. It's like my career counselors always told me, "Hey, how you're perceived is what will help you get ahead in life, and you yourself are a brand, and you need to project that and build that brand." And I'm like, okay, but if I'm a brand, then what about the person? It's like
That's
I'm
right.
no longer a person.
That's
Then I'm an
right.
entity.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Then everything is okay. Then for my brand, I need to build documents. No longer friendship. We have agreements at this point. But that we can't live like that though.
No.
We shouldn't live like that. So coming back to the whole idea of relationships and managing relationships and that, I don't see relationship as something we get to manage. I don't think we should. That's just a good idea, but bad practice.
Hmm.
But relationships are a gift from God. These are things we get to have, not something we have to have. And everything, especially in SEAPC, this culture at the office we have, is we love friendship around the table. We love these relationships that come to us by God. God sends these people to us, and then we get to steward this not because we have to, but because we get to spend time with our friends. Any given day, I know you, Matt, Tony, anyone in this office, you would drop every day's work and go spend time with friends. And that's the in a heartbeat. I know that. And that's where people like me come in, and I'm like, hey guys, we get to do that, but also we have something we want to do at a larger scale. And they're like, oh yeah, how do we do this interpersonal one-on-one relationships at a scale of tens of thousands and millions of people at this point?
Right.
So that's where I sit.
Kind of like what Victoria was sharing. It's not just what you're doing, it's the way. the way in which we do it, because we do have a calling and we have a purpose, but the way in which we do it is not to build our own individual brands at the expense of one another. Boy, that is not what Jesus showed us at all.
It's it flipped everything Jesus says, and that's something I love about the scripture, and especially in this generation, is it flips everything on your head there. It's so counterintuitive. This world says we grew up with the whole idea of you build your brand, and Jesus is like, you want to be first? Go be lost.
Be lost.
It's like, okay, Jesus, I'll do this, but I don't like doing this, it doesn't get me ahead in life, but again, that's where true value is. That's fun.
I think of the disciples when Jesus had left and went to heaven, and they were carrying on his mission, and they said, actually the people in the city and the religious leaders looked at them and they marveled. And they didn't marvel because of their brand. They didn't marvel because of their government status or their fluency in religion and helping the poor. All those, not to take anything away from any one of those individual things, but that's what we talked about today. And just as we circle around the table, as we close this time, I think of their faces and what they must have thought when these people looked at them and said, well, who are they? And they said something so profound. They said, I perceive that you have been with Jesus. It overrode everything. It overrode their natural qualifications. It overrode their own weaknesses, that they looked not like the right men or women for the job. They had been with Jesus. When you say time, if we spend time with the table with him and with one another, we will go out into the world as a generations, and people will say, there's no other explanation than they've been with somebody I've not been with. They didn't just do the marketing strategy that was taught to me. They didn't read the latest political agenda. They didn't, have the latest missional strategy. They didn't just recite it back. I perceive that, Lay, you've been with Jesus. Victoria, you've been with Jesus. Josh, you've been with Jesus. That we have been with Jesus. There's no substitute for that. So if we really are getting real and serious about changing the world, that is actually the best and quickest way to do it. We can take all the gifts God gives us, but if we miss the time and the stewardship with him, it just looks so much like what everybody else is pumping out there, and they get overloaded. They get hurt. They get disillusioned. So thank you, each one of you. This was gold. It was powerful. And I pray that we all got to just dig into this, pray for Gen Z in these areas, and also learn from them and believe with them and stand with them. So thank you guys for coming to From the Table, and let's do it again.
Having us.
Thank you.